Rewrite your future begins the moment you decide that the story you've been telling yourself is not the story you're required to live. Right now, in this very breath, you hold the power to interrupt every old pattern, every limitation, every belief that once shaped your identity. The past may have written the earlier chapters, but the pen has always been in your hand, and today you choose to write with a different ink, the ink of intention, awareness, and possibility. To rewrite your future, you must first become conscious of the inner world that has been silently guiding your outer life. Most people wake up each day carrying yesterday into today, living from the same emotions, repeating the same thoughts, reacting with the same habits. And without realizing it, they recreate the same predictable reality. But the moment you step out of that automatic cycle, the moment you choose to observe your thoughts instead of obeying them, something incredible happens. You become the architect of your future instead of the product of your past. Your next chapter begins when you stop rehearsing the emotions of old stories. You don't overcome your past by fighting it, you overcome it by starving it. Every time you choose gratitude over fear, calm over chaos, courage over doubt, you signal to your mind and body that you are no longer the same person you were yesterday. You are teaching yourself a new state of being, a new energy, a new identity. And your life will always rise to match the energy you choose. Look at this moment as an invitation, a threshold between who you have been and who you are becoming. You don't need the perfect plan, the perfect timing, or the perfect confidence. You only need one decision, the decision to no longer live unconsciously. When you change your internal state, you change your future long before it arrives. The universe responds not to your past, but to your frequency. And when your frequency aligns with your vision, life begins to rearrange itself in ways that once felt impossible. Close your eyes and feel the version of you who has already stepped into that next chapter. Feel their strength, their clarity, their peace. Let that feeling become more familiar than the stories of your past, because the moment it feels real inside you, the moment your brain and body believe it, your future has already begun. You're no longer waiting for a new life, you're generating it from within. This is your turning point. This is your reset. This is the moment you decide to think differently, feel differently, act differently. You are not limited by who you were. You are empowered by who you choose to be. And the next chapter of your life is not written by chance. It is written by your consciousness, your intention, and your willingness to step into the unknown with trust. Rewrite your future. Start now. The next chapter is waiting for you to claim it, and everything you desire is already moving toward the person you are becoming. Breaking the cycle of your past by choosing conscious awareness begins with understanding that most of what you do, think, and feel each day is not truly chosen by you in the present moment, but carried over from patterns built long before today. These patterns are like invisible programs running in the background of your mind, shaping how you respond, how you speak, how you interpret situations, and how you emotionally react. When you live this way, you're not creating your future. You're merely repeating your past. The key to rewriting your future starts with bringing these unconscious behaviors into the light of awareness. Conscious awareness is the act of becoming present enough to observe your thoughts instead of being controlled by them, to notice your emotional habits instead of automatically slipping into them. It is the moment you interrupt the autopilot state that keeps you stuck in the same cycle day after day, when you begin to catch yourself thinking the same limiting thought or feeling the same familiar emotion. You create a space between stimulus and response. That space is where change begins. Awareness allows you to see the truth. Your past patterns are not your identity. They are simply memorized states of being. You learned them, and anything learned can be unlearned. The moment you recognize an old pattern is the moment you weaken its influence. Instead of reacting from past wounds, past doubts, or past fears, you choose to respond from the version of yourself you want to become. This shift does not require force, it requires observation. When you witness your own mind with clarity, you no longer drown in your thoughts, you rise above them, and rising above them gives you the power to choose differently. You begin to notice how certain thoughts trigger certain emotions and how those emotions lead to specific actions that keep you stuck in the same reality. With awareness, you can interrupt this loop and choose a new path, even if that new path feels unfamiliar or uncomfortable at first. Conscious awareness also means becoming present in your body. Your body stores emotional memories, and often it reacts before your mind even realizes what is happening. You may feel anxious, angry, or discouraged without fully understanding why. When you bring awareness to these sensations, you give yourself the chance to shift your state instead of falling into it. You breathe, observe, calm the body, and in doing so, you reclaim control over your internal world. The more you practice this, the easier it becomes to choose a different emotional response, and choosing different emotions over time rewires your identity. Awareness is not a one-time decision, it is a daily practice of paying attention to the way you think and feel. It's the commitment to no longer let your past dictate how you show up. When you choose conscious awareness, you stop living by habit and start living by intention. You become the witness of your life instead of the passenger. You start catching negative thoughts before they shape your reality, noticing emotional reactions before they take over your day, and recognizing patterns that once operated in the dark. In that recognition, you break the cycle. Shifting your emotional state to align with the future you desire begins with understanding that your emotions are not just reactions to your life. They are signals that shape your life. Every emotion you feel sends a message to your mind and body, training them to expect a certain kind of reality. When you repeatedly wake up with stress, doubt, frustration, or fear, your body becomes conditioned to those emotions, and your brain starts predicting a future that looks exactly like your past. To create a new future, you must generate emotions that match the life you want to live, not the life you are trying to leave behind. This means choosing the feelings of your desired future before it arrives, practicing them until they become your new baseline. When you consciously shift your emotional state, you create a powerful internal environment that invites different opportunities, different decisions, and different outcomes. This shift doesn't happen by forcing yourself to feel happy or confident. It happens by understanding how emotions originate. Emotions are the result of thoughts, and thoughts are influenced by your focus. If you're thinking from the perspective of lack, worry, or limitation, your emotional state will reflect that perspective. But the moment you shift your focus toward possibility, gratitude, growth, or vision, your emotional state begins to change. Even if at first it feels small or subtle, that shift is a crack in the old emotional pattern. It's a moment where you step out of an old identity and into a new one. Each time you intentionally choose a better emotional response, you weaken the old emotional habits that once controlled you. Over time, your body stops anticipating the stress of yesterday and begins anticipating the joy or clarity of tomorrow. Aligning your emotions with your future also requires becoming aware of the emotional addictions that keep you stuck. Many people unconsciously become dependent on familiar emotions like anger, worry, or sadness because they feel known and predictable. These emotions create a biochemical comfort zone, even if they're uncomfortable. But when you decide to shift your emotional state toward your desired future, you break free from those addictions. You choose emotions that support your growth instead of emotions that reinforce your limitations. This may feel unfamiliar at first because your mind and body are adjusting to a new internal environment. But this unfamiliarity is proof that you are changing. Each time you practice the emotions of your future, you strengthen the neural pathways connected to your vision and weaken the pathways tied to your past. The key is consistency. You must practice these elevated emotions daily until they become natural. Visualize your future and evoke the feelings that version of you would experience. Feel the gratitude as if the dream has already unfolded. Feel the confidence of the person who has already overcome the obstacles. Feel the peace of the life you are stepping into. The more real these emotions become inside your body, the more your brain begins to believe that your future has already arrived. And once your brain believes it, your actions shift, your decisions evolve, and your environment responds accordingly. Shifting your emotional state is not about pretending everything is perfect. It is about choosing to no longer let old emotions control your path. It is about becoming intentional with your inner world so that your outer world can begin to reshape itself. When your emotions align with your desired future, you become a magnet for the life you truly want. You no longer chase your future, you embody it, and by embodying it, you draw it closer with every thought, feeling, and action you choose. Creating a new identity by practicing new thoughts and feelings daily begins with understanding that who you believe you are is not fixed or permanent. Your identity is a collection of memories, emotional reactions, habits, beliefs, and stories you've repeated to yourself for years. Much of it was formed unconsciously, shaped by past experiences, external influences, and repeated emotional patterns. But the moment you decide to become aware of these patterns, you gain the power to redesign who you are becoming. A new identity is not created by a single breakthrough. It is built through the daily repetition of new inner experiences. Every new thought you practice and every new emotion you choose becomes a building block of the person you are stepping into. You create your identity from the inside out. If your thoughts stay the same, your emotions stay the same. If your emotions stay the same, your behavior stays the same. And if your behavior stays the same, your life cannot change. To transform your identity, you must interrupt this cycle. You do this by consciously installing new thoughts into your mind, thoughts that reflect the future you want rather than the limitations you've accepted in the past. At first, these new thoughts may feel unnatural because your brain is used to the familiar patterns it has practiced for years. But just as your old identity was formed through repetition, your new identity will also solidify through repetition. Every time you remind yourself of who you want to become, you strengthen that neural pathway and weaken the ones tied to your old self. This process requires emotional involvement because thoughts alone are not enough. Your identity is shaped by the emotions you feel consistently, not just the ideas you think. To truly create a new identity, you must practice feeling the emotions of your desired future on a daily basis. If you want to become more confident, you must practice the feeling of confidence. If your future self is calm and centered, you must practice calmness until it becomes a familiar state. If your future self is disciplined, grateful, inspired, or empowered, then those emotions need to become regular experiences in your day. The combination of new thoughts and elevated emotions creates a new internal signature that your mind and body begin to recognize as your new identity. There will be moments when the old identity tries to pull you back, moments of doubt, fear, impatience, or self-criticism. This is normal because the brain is wired to prefer what is familiar, even if it's not beneficial. When those old emotions surface, they are not signs of failure. They are signs that you are stepping beyond the boundaries of your old self. The key is not to engage with them. Notice them, breathe through them, and consciously return to the thoughts and emotions that represent who you are becoming. With practice, the old identity loses its emotional charge. Your body stops responding to old patterns as if they are truth, and your mind begins to adopt the new patterns as your default state. Building a new identity is an intentional, daily ritual. It's a commitment to waking up each morning and choosing who you want to be before the world tells you who you were. It's a choice to align your thoughts with your vision, your emotions with your future, and your actions with your highest self. Over time, these practices create measurable change. You begin speaking differently, reacting differently, deciding differently. You feel different in your own skin, and eventually, the person you once had to consciously practice becoming becomes the person you naturally are. You don't force the new identity, you embody it, you live it, you become it through consistent inner practice until the new version of you feels more real than any past version you ever knew. Visualizing your next chapter until it becomes your internal reality begins with recognizing the immense creative power of your imagination. Most people use their imagination unconsciously, replaying old memories, anticipating familiar problems, and mentally rehearsing fears or limitations. Without realizing it, they repeatedly project their past into their future. But when you intentionally visualize the life you want, you break this cycle and train your mind to perceive new possibilities. Visualization is not wishful thinking, it is a neurological and emotional rehearsal of your future self. When you create a vivid inner picture of the future you desire, your brain begins to map that experience as if it is happening now. The more detailed, emotional, and consistent your visualization becomes, the more your brain and body start aligning with that imagined outcome. Visualization works because the brain doesn't differentiate deeply imagined experiences from real ones. When you imagine yourself succeeding, healing, growing, or transforming, you activate the same neural pathways as if you were actually living those moments. Over time, these mental rehearsals strengthen your confidence, expand your sense of possibility, and weaken the emotional grip of old patterns. This internal rehearsal teaches your mind what to look for in the external world. It sharpens your intuition, heightens your awareness, and draws your attention to opportunities aligned with your vision. More importantly, it shifts your belief system. You begin to believe in the future you are creating because you've experienced it internally again and again. For visualization to reshape your internal reality, it must be more than a quick mental image. It must be an emotional experience. Emotions are what signal to your body that the imagined scenario is real. When you visualize your future with elevated feelings such as gratitude, joy, confidence, and expansion, those emotions become the bridge between imagination and manifestation. The emotional component tells your subconscious that this future is not only possible, but already familiar. The body begins to anticipate that reality, and your behaviors naturally start aligning with it. You make decisions differently, show up with more presence, and take steps that reflect your future instead of your past. Visualization also helps to solve internal resistance. Many people struggle to change because their previous identity feels more real than the one they desire. But when you repeatedly visualize your next chapter with clarity and emotional depth, the new identity gains strength. You stop feeling like you are pretending and start feeling like you are remembering who you are becoming. The old identity loses its influence because your mind starts valuing the vision of your future more than the familiarity of your past. This shift creates a powerful inner momentum. You feel guided, inspired, and aligned, not because anything external has changed yet, but because you've changed the way you see yourself and your future. Consistency is essential. Even a few minutes of visualization practiced daily has transformative power. The more often you return to the inner movie of your next chapter, the more real it becomes within you. You may begin noticing synchronicities, opportunities, and intuitive nudges that seem to guide you toward your vision. These are not coincidences, they are the natural consequences of aligning your internal state with your desired future. When your inner world is clear and coherent, your outer world starts reorganizing itself in response. The goal is to make your vision so familiar that your mind no longer doubts it and your body no longer resists it. Once your internal reality shifts, your external reality has no choice but to follow. Visualization becomes the blueprint for your transformation, shaping your beliefs, expanding your perception, and anchoring you to the future you are intentionally creating. Stepping into the unknown with trust instead of fear begins with recognizing that every meaningful transformation requires you to walk beyond the boundaries of your familiar life. The familiar feels safe because it is predictable, even if it holds you back. The unknown feels intimidating because it has no guarantees, no certainty, and no clear blueprint. Yet the unknown is the only place where a new reality can be created. Everything you desire, every dream you hold, every version of you that you want to become lives outside the limits of your current comfort zone. Stepping into the unknown is not about recklessness, it is about courage. It is the willingness to let go of the identity that your past shaped and embrace the identity your future requires. Fear appears whenever you face the unfamiliar because your mind is designed to protect you with what it already knows. But what it knows may not be what you need. Fear thrives on old patterns, old beliefs, and old interpretations of life. Trust, however, is built on vision and possibility. When you step into the unknown with trust, you shift from surviving your old life to creating your new one. You stop asking, "What if it goes wrong?" and begin asking, "What if this is the doorway to everything I've been seeking?" This simple shift in perspective dissolves the mental walls that keep you confined. Instead of shrinking from uncertainty, you begin to see it as a space of potential, an open field where you can plant new intentions and grow new outcomes. Trust is not blind faith, it is an inner alignment with your vision. It is a quiet confidence that your future is bigger than your fear. To cultivate trust, you must develop a relationship with your intuition, your inner wisdom, and the deeper part of you that knows you are capable of more. When you act from this deeper place, you make decisions not from the limitations of your past, but from the potential of your future. You begin to feel guided, even when you can't predict every step ahead. The unknown becomes less of a threat and more of an invitation, an opportunity to evolve into the person you were meant to be. Stepping into the unknown also means releasing the need to control every outcome. Control is the mind's way of clinging to the familiar, but creation requires openness. When you let go of rigid expectations, you allow new possibilities to enter your life, possibilities that are often greater than anything you could have imagined. Trust opens the door to synchronicities, unexpected opportunities, and intuitive nudges that lead you forward. These moments remind you that you are not walking alone. Life begins to respond to your courage, meeting you halfway when you take steps toward your vision. The unknown becomes less frightening the more you practice being in it. Each time you choose trust over fear, you build emotional resilience. You realize that uncertainty does not break you, it strengthens you. You grow more flexible, more adaptable, more connected to your purpose. You begin to see that the unknown is not an empty void, but a creative space where life rearranges itself around your new intentions. It is where breakthroughs happen, where new identities are formed, and where you discover strengths you didn't know you had. Choosing trust is choosing transformation. It is choosing to believe in a future that has not yet arrived, but is already forming within you. It is choosing to walk with confidence even when the path is not fully lit. And in that choice, you activate a powerful force within yourself. The force that pulls you forward, opens new doors, and leads you to the life you are destined to create. Becoming the architect of your life by living intentionally in every moment begins with recognizing that your life is not shaped by the big events alone, but by the countless small decisions, thoughts, and emotional choices you make throughout each day. Most people move through life on autopilot, repeating the same behaviors and reactions without realizing that these unconscious habits are designing their reality. To become the architect of your life, you must bring awareness to these moments and choose them consciously. Every moment becomes a chance to align with your future instead of drifting into your past. Living intentionally means deciding how you want to think, how you want to feel, and how you want to act long before external circumstances influence you. It is choosing your inner state instead of reacting to the world around you. Intentional living requires clarity. You must know what you are creating, who you want to become, and what kind of life you want to build. Without clarity, your mind will default to old patterns because they require no effort. But when you set clear intentions, you begin directing your energy instead of scattering it. Your thoughts become purposeful, your emotions become supportive, and your actions become aligned with your vision. Intention acts like a compass. Even if you don't know every step ahead, you know the direction in which you are moving. Each intentional choice you make becomes a brick in the foundation of your new reality. Over time, these choices accumulate and reshape the trajectory of your life. As the architect of your life, you must also understand the power of self-observation. You cannot change what you do not notice. When you observe your reactions, your habits, and your emotional triggers without judgment, you gain the power to redesign them. You begin to see where your energy leaks, where your patterns repeat, and where your beliefs limit you. This awareness allows you to interrupt the old blueprint and rewrite a new one. Instead of acting from past conditioning, you respond from conscious intention. This shift is subtle at first, but it transforms everything. You become someone who acts from purpose, not from habit, someone who chooses growth over comfort, someone who creates their life instead of inheriting it. Living intentionally also means taking responsibility for your inner world. You stop blaming circumstances, people, or past experiences for the direction of your life. Responsibility is not about guilt, it is about empowerment. It means recognizing that while you cannot control everything that happens, you can always control the meaning you give to experiences and the actions you take next. When you take ownership of your inner state, you unlock the freedom to shape your outer reality. Your mindset becomes your greatest tool, your emotions become signals rather than obstacles, and your actions become purposeful steps toward your vision. Consistency is what turns intention into transformation. You cannot build a new life with old habits. Each day becomes an opportunity to practice the identity you are creating. You show up with the thoughts that match your future, the emotions that amplify your growth, and the behaviors that reflect your highest self. You make choices that support the person you are becoming, not the person you are leaving behind. And even on the days when you fall back into old patterns, you return to your intention without judgment. This is how you build momentum, this is how you rewire your identity, this is how you construct a future that feels aligned with your true potential. Eventually, intentional living becomes natural. You no longer need to force it because it becomes who you are. You become someone who wakes each day with clarity, moves through life with awareness, and responds with purpose. You build your reality from the inside out, brick by brick, moment by moment, and in doing so, you transform from a passenger of your life into its creator.